This segment is
I
brought
bet
to
you-
you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios here on this Monday. And Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, join us. And Don, I hope you have a voice left after calling all of those scores by Indiana over the weekend, because my goodness, I've been very positive about this team, Don, but I will tell you, I did not have that on my bingo card.
Well, I doubt that most people did. Again, every single time this year that Indiana has gone into a football game when expectations have been high, that they've got to somehow find a way to get this thing done, and they've got to find a way to somehow knock this team off, or whatever the thinking process was. This team has totally exceeded expectations the entire year, in my opinion. Not one single ball game has been in doubt at the end. You could argue that the Northwestern game was probably the closest that anybody has played them, certainly in the conference at this point in the season. This is a football team that's on a mission, Jim. I don't think there's much question about that. They've talked about that. There's no limit to what they've been able to do offensively. I think the perfect point of that scenario is this past weekend, when the first half, you have Curtis Rourke at the very end of the first half. He gets dinged, obviously goes out with an injury at halftime, still led them after he hurt his thumb, led them to a touchdown. And then he doesn't see play in the second half. Taven Jackson comes in, and this team didn't miss a beat. It was phenomenal what Jackson was able to do. But again, he's got those pieces around him that gives you that opportunity. And I thought Taven played extraordinarily well, considering he hasn't had a lot of reps so far this year, because backup quarterback doesn't get that many, especially during the season. And he came in and just performed terrific. So 10 different receivers in this football game catch passes. 10. That tells you how extraordinary this offense is, in the sense of what quarterbacks are allowed to do, what they're coached to do, and how they execute those performances. It's just amazing to me, and it hasn't stopped at any point this year. You just continue to play great complementary football on offense and defense. The defense turns Nebraska over 5 times in this game, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and doesn't have any turnovers themselves. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect. There's never any perfect ball game, but I'm telling you, this team is playing as close to perfect as anything I've seen in a long time.
Yeah. I want to give credit to Taven Jackson, because he had to make the plays, but it is a situation where this team is so machine-like, that, and so many weapons and options to go to. It has to put fear in every defensive coordinator. I don't care who we're talking about. If it's Ohio State or Michigan, it doesn't matter. They are all going to by the time they get around to playing Indiana, they're going to know that, oh my gosh, this is the hardest offense we played against this year. Indiana's completely getting the respect that they probably deserve by now, because after what they did this weekend with the nation's number 7 defense, they just rolled them. I mean, they came into the game not allowing a rushing touchdown in their first 6 games. And what is the first thing Indiana does? March right down the field and put a rushing touchdown on the board. And they would add 4 more on the day, Don. So running the ball, Indiana's been looked at as a passing team, which they are, but running the ball is a huge part of their game also.
Well, all you got to do is look at statistics of this team on the season, and it tells you how balanced that they are. I mean, they can run the football, they can pass the football, and they will fool you a lot, because the scheme, that offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, and Kurt Cignetti are putting together every single ball game. They have something different to show the defense, and people aren't ready for it. And to me, that's how good this Indiana football coaching staff is as well. And Buck Sewell said this often on Saturday. He said, look, this coaching staff does a phenomenal job, but he said it takes great players to do what they're doing at this point. And he says Indiana has a bunch of really great players right now.
Not only that, I mentioned this earlier, Don. I didn't find this out until we were fortunate to do the interviews with the Fox guys and Matt Leinart. I'd ask him about, everyone's talking about Indiana doing this with all these transfers and yada, yada. And I'm saying, but these transfers are all from the mid-major levels, whether it's James Madison or Old Dominion or Ohio. They're not coming in from Texas or any of these big-time schools. And then Matt Leinart took it further and said, they have 44 players on this team that had 0 stars coming out of high school. I didn't know that. That is the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
Well, it just shows you that coaches do make a difference. There's no question. And this coaching staff is absolutely brilliant. Kurt Cignetti has done a remarkable job of hiring the right people. And that's just another one of his tremendous traits. He when he interviews somebody, he knows almost immediately whether that's the right guy or not. And he gets the right people. He puts them in the position, and he obviously gives them what he's looking for in each position group and all those kinds of things. And then he lets those guys go out and coach them. And it's just remarkable what we've seen here, this transition of Indiana football in 1 year's time. When you hire a new guy and you think the guy's going to come in, it's going to take him some time to figure this thing out. There's been none of that. It is right from the very beginning, with the start of the transfer portal, recruiting, and all those kinds of things that this coaching staff came in to do from the very beginning. And you're thinking, man, this is a huge challenge for these guys, and they've met every challenge. It's amazing.
Yeah, and here's another stat that I heard and couldn't believe. They had the first drop pass of the year. I remember the play, a crossing pattern. It was wide open. He just dropped it, and he would have gone for a lot of yards. I forget who it was, but
Zach Horton.
Yeah, he would have gone.
That's the last guy you'd think would drop it too, because he and Elijah Surratt are probably both have the best hands in this football team. And I will give credit to Omar Cooper too. This kid makes tough catches, and he had a spectacular grab in this ball game. But again, when you look at this team and you're sitting here going, well, where's their weakness? And you don't see a weakness. You just don't. I mean, the defense was supposed to be the weak side of the football team this year. The defense comes in and plays tremendous complementary football. You don't turn a team over like Nebraska at 5 different times in this ball game if your defense isn't doing a heck of a job. And they absolutely play as hard, as tough, physical, relentless, and fast, all those kinds of terms that the defensive guys use. And they're every bit of those kinds of things. There's nothing on this ball club right now, nothing that you can say is a weakness at this point.
No,
tell me the weakest part of the team. Can you pick it out?
Nope. I'd say punting, because we haven't seen James Evans all year long. Maybe have to send out a APB on him. He did make one appearance in the game. Someone earlier had a comment. I wish I could pull it back up, that he was doing great with all kinds of tape for the NFL, but now he's gone missing. You don't get to see him anymore.
Right. I mean, that there's not a weakness on this football team. You have 2 kickers. 2 kickoff guys go down, and you bring in a freshman, and he's been booting it ever since. I mean, and he does a good job with it. He had maybe one clunker on Saturday. I think he kicked it out of bounds there late in the ball game. But I'm telling you, this football team is so well put together. And obviously they've got a bunch of players that came in here all with the chip on their shoulder, and you mold that chip into a football team right now that is playing, again, I don't want to say perfect football, but it is as close to anything that we've seen at Indiana to perfect in a long, long time.
They're just not making mistakes. They're not beating themselves. And I know your cohort, Buck Sewer, will tell you that when you don't make mistakes and don't beat yourself, you make it damn hard for somebody else to beat you.
Well, and here's the other thing too. And one of the things that is so impressive right now is that every one of these ball games of late has been an expectation game, a game where expectations are, well, this is going to be the biggest challenge and all those kinds of things. And can Indiana handle this type of team? And Nebraska was reputed to be a great defensive ball club. And Indiana had over 500 yards against this team until you started taking a knee at the end of the ball game that knocked you back from about 520 yards of offense back down to 495. But this team just dominated Nebraska's defense, a defense that was reputed to be the best that Indiana had faced up to this point. So all I can tell you is this team exceeds expectations almost every time they walk out of the field.
Yeah, Robert says it'll be interesting to see what kind of retooling the coaching staff does to the offense with a new quarterback. I don't think there's going to be a lick of change. There was no change Saturday, and why would you change? They're not going to retool this offense around Taven. Taven is a part of the offense as it is, and I don't think there will be any changes. He didn't need any changes Saturday. He stepped right in and just stepped right into the same shoes and was making. He made that throw that he made to Elijah Surratt, which was a great catch, but it was a tremendous throw that touched over the shoulder touchdown. My gosh, that was a thing of beauty.
No, it was spectacular. There's no question about that. And here's the good news about Taven. And the one thing, when David Jackson started last year, the first 3 games of the season or whatever that was, when he was playing, and Buck and I went to practice. This is in the fall before they started playing games. We were practice together one day, and he said, "You know what?" He says, "Taven Jackson has really, really improved his footwork." He said, "These guys have coached him up, and they have really done a great job with what Taven is doing out there, at least from a pure foot perspective. His footwork is now legitimately top notch, to say the least." And on Saturday, and here's the one thing he brings to the table that Curtis Rourke doesn't do a lot of, and that's run the football. David Jackson was very effective running the football. He had 2 first down runs in that game on Saturday in the second half. Again, it's late in the ball game. Indiana's got a big lead, all those kinds of things. But the fact that nothing changed for this Indiana football team, they kept their foot on their throat the entire contest, and they never stopped being aggressive from an offensive standpoint. It is so much fun to watch.
It absolutely is, Don. I know you are looking forward to this week. Another big home game as Washington will come in. ESPN's Game Day. It's announced that they are coming to the IU campus, which continues to roll this thing that is now become Indiana football. It is a juggernaut in every sense of the word. It has taken over the college football landscape. It is on the tongue of everybody. Everybody's talking about it, and Indiana could not afford that kind of marketing and advertising, man.
No, that's exactly right. We're talking about an Indiana program that at one point, where I maybe still is, I don't know the case, but was the worst Division I football program in the country from a win-loss perspective. So things have changed at IU. There's no doubt about that. And it's going to be fun to watch the rest of the season, even though I am still concerned that Curtis Rourke is hurt. The guy has had what I would say would be definitely a Heisman Trophy candidate type season at this juncture. He should be in that conversation. I just hope that he's not out for significant amount of time at this juncture, because his performances this year have been absolutely, just spectacular. No question about it.
Yeah, it couldn't come at a worse time, but we'll see how that comes around. But it's going to be fun watching this team the rest of the season, Don. I know we'll see you on Thursday night inside Indiana football with Don and Kurt Signetti at Hoosier Hanks East, and we look forward to that.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
As always, a pleasure having Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers. We've got lots more coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Back with more, brought to you by Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Just go to freethinkapparel.com. Back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing, or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles.